I've been in the investment business for over 7 decades now, and if there's one thing I've learned about building wealth, it's this. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And there's no faster way to destroy wealth than credit card debt. I want to share something with you today that I've been saying for years, but that the credit card companies hope you never truly understand. It's simple, it's powerful, and if you follow it, you'll be wealthier than 90% of Americans. Here it is. If you can't pay off your credit card in full every single month, you can't afford what you're buying. Now, I know that sounds almost too simple. You might be thinking, oh, Warren, everyone knows that. But here's the thing. Knowing something and doing something are two entirely different matters. Most Americans are carrying credit card debt right now. The average household with credit card debt owes over $17,000, and they're paying interest rates that would make a loan shark blush. Let me put this in perspective for you. I've spent my entire career looking for good investments, things that will compound wealth over time. A good investment might return 10% annually. A great investment might return 15% or even 20% if you're extraordinarily fortunate and skilled. But credit card debt costs you 18%, 22%, sometimes 28% or more every single year. Think about that for a moment. If I told you I had an investment that guaranteed you an 18% return, you'd think I was either lying or running a scheme. Yet when you pay off credit card debt, that's exactly what you're getting, an 18% guaranteed return. There's no investment in the stock market, no bond, no real estate deal that can match the guaranteed return you get from paying off high interest debt. Charlie Munger, my partner for nearly 60 years, used to say that the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Well, credit card debt is the ultimate interruption to compounding. It's compounding in reverse. It's a wealth destruction machine, and it's designed that way intentionally. Now, let me tell you how we got here, because understanding the game is the first step to winning it. The credit card industry's business model. When I was young, credit cards didn't exist the way they do today. If you wanted to buy something, you saved up for it or you went without. The concept of buying things you couldn't afford simply wasn't part of the culture. But somewhere along the way, the financial industry discovered the most profitable business model in history, lending money to consumers at extraordinarily high interest rates. The credit card companies are brilliant, I'll give them that. They figured out how to make enormous profits while making their customers feel like they're getting a good deal. How do they do it? Let me walk you through their playbook. First, they offer you rewards, cash back, points, miles, all sorts of enticing benefits. They advertise these benefits heavily, and they make you feel smart for using their card. Get 2% cash back on every purchase, they say. And you think, well, that sounds like a good deal. I'm getting paid to spend money. But here's what they're not telling you. Those rewards are funded by the interest payments from people who carry balances. The credit card company isn't giving you free money. They're giving you a tiny fraction of the massive profits they're making from consumers who can't pay off their balances each month. You're getting your 2% back while they're charging someone else 22% interest. It's a wealth transfer from the undisciplined to the disciplined, and the credit card company takes a generous cut for facilitating it. Second, they make the minimum payment absurdly low. Let's say you have a $5,000 balance on your credit card. Your minimum payment might be just $150. That seems manageable, doesn't it? You can afford $150 a month. So you make that payment and you feel responsible. You feel like you're managing your debt. But here's the mathematics of that situation. At 22% interest, if you only make the minimum payment on that $5,000 balance, do you know how long it will take you to pay it off? Over 30 years, 3 decades, and you'll pay over $10,000 in interest alone. You'll pay 3 times what you originally borrowed. Let me say that again because it's important. If you charge $5,000 on a credit card at 22% interest and make only the minimum payments, you'll end up paying $15,000 total. The credit card company will make $10,000 in profit from that one transaction. That's a better return than almost any business in America. Third, they make it incredibly easy to spend. Contactless payments, one-click purchasing, saved payment information on every website. The entire system is designed to reduce what behavioral economists call friction. The easier it is to spend money, the more money you'll spend. It's human nature. When you handed over cash for a purchase, you felt it. You physically saw the money leave your wallet. There was a psychological cost to spending. But when you tap a card or click a button, that psychological cost disappears. The credit card companies know this. They've studied the psychology of spending more than almost anyone, and they've designed their systems to exploit it. The real cost of credit card debt. Now, let me show you what credit card debt actually costs you, not just in dollars, but in life opportunities, because that's what we're really talking about here. We're not just talking about interest payments. We're talking about freedom, options, and the ability to build real wealth. Let's use a real example. Suppose you're a 25-year-old carrying $10,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest. You make the minimum payments, which start at around $200 per month. At that rate, you'll be paying off this debt until you're almost 60 years old. You'll pay over $23,000 in interest. That's $23,000 that could have been building wealth for you instead of building wealth for the credit card company. But it gets worse, much worse, because of what economists call opportunity cost. That $23,000 you're paying in interest could have been invested. If instead of paying credit card interest, you invested that money in a simple index fund averaging 10% returns, do you know what you'd have after 35 years? Over $380,000. Let me repeat that. The choice between carrying $10,000 in credit card debt versus being debt-free and investing isn't just a $23,000 decision. It's a $380,000 decision. That's the difference between retiring comfortably and working into your 70s. That's the difference between financial independence and financial stress. And here's something else people don't think about. Credit card debt affects every other financial decision you make. When you're carrying high interest debt, you can't take advantage of opportunities. You can't invest when the market crashes and stocks are on sale. You can't start that business you've been thinking about. You can't take a risk on a career change that might lead to something better. Debt constrains your options. It keeps you stuck. It forces you to make safe choices even when better opportunities exist. I've seen brilliant people with tremendous potential never achieve what they're capable of because they were carrying debt that limited their freedom to take smart risks. My rule and why it works. So here's my rule, and it's simple. Never carry a credit card balance, ever. If you can't pay off your credit card in full at the end of the month, you can't afford whatever you're buying, period. Notice I didn't say never use a credit card. I use credit cards. They're convenient and safe. And yes, if you're getting rewards and paying in full, those rewards are genuine benefits. But the moment you carry a balance, you've lost the game. The moment you pay interest, every reward you've ever earned gets wiped out and then some. This rule works because it forces you to live within your means. It creates a natural spending discipline. If you know you have to pay off the full balance at the end of the month, you think carefully before making purchases. You ask yourself, do I really need this? Can I actually afford this? Those questions are the foundation of financial health. But I can hear some of you saying, Warren, that's easy for you to say. You're a billionaire, but I have expenses, I have emergencies. Sometimes I have to carry a balance. And I understand that perspective. Life happens. Unexpected expenses arise. But here's what I've learned. If you're regularly using credit cards for emergencies, you don't have an income problem or an expense problem. You have a planning problem. Let me explain what I mean by that. Building your financial foundation before you do anything else with your money, before you invest, before you save for retirement, even before you pay extra on your mortgage, you need an emergency fund. This is non-negotiable. You need cash sitting in a savings account that you can access immediately when something goes wrong. How much? I recommend at least $1,000 to start, then build it up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. I know that sounds like a lot, but consider the alternative. Without an emergency fund, every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. Your car breaks down and suddenly you're charging $800 to a credit card at 22% interest. Your water heater dies and you're financing it at rates that would have been illegal a few generations ago. But with an emergency fund, those situations aren't emergencies anymore. They're just expenses. Annoying, certainly, but manageable. You pay cash, you replenish the fund over the next few months, and you move on. No debt, no interest, no years of payments. Building an emergency fund requires sacrifice. It means saying no to things you want so you can prepare for things you'll need. It means living below your means for a period of time. But I can tell you from 7 decades of experience, the peace of mind that comes from having cash reserves is worth far more than whatever you're giving up to build those reserves. Now, here's the part that most financial advice gets wrong. Most people will tell you to save for emergencies while also carrying credit card debt. They'll say something like, save $1,000 for emergencies, then focus on paying off debt. But the mathematics of that don't work. If you have money sitting in a savings account earning 0.5% interest while you're paying 20% interest on credit card debt, you're losing money every single day. You're earning 50 cents on every $100 in savings while paying $20 on every $100 of debt. That's a net loss of $19.50 per $100. It's financial madness. So here's what I recommend instead. If you have credit card debt, every dollar beyond absolute necessities should go toward paying it off. Yes, this means you're vulnerable to emergencies in the short term, but you're already vulnerable with credit card debt. The only difference is you're not making the hole deeper while you're trying to climb out. Once the credit card debt is gone, and I mean completely gone, zero balance, then you build your emergency fund as fast as possible. Attack it with the same intensity you use to attack the debt, because until you have both no credit card debt and an emergency fund, you're financially vulnerable. How to escape credit card debt. If you're currently carrying credit card debt, let me give you a specific plan to get out of it. This isn't complicated, but it does require discipline and commitment. Step 1. Stop using the cards. I mean completely stop. Cut them up if you have to. Remove them from your wallet. Delete the saved payment information from websites. You cannot get out of a hole while you're still digging. Every dollar you charge is a dollar you'll have to pay back plus interest. You're moving backward. I know this is hard. We live in a world designed around credit card use, but it's necessary. Use a debit card, use cash, use whatever you need to use, but stop adding to the credit card balances. Step 2, list all your debts. Write down every credit card, the balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Look at the total, really see it. This number is what's standing between you and financial freedom. This is the enemy, and you need to know what you're fighting. Step 3, decide on your attack strategy. There are 2 main approaches and both work. The question is, which one works better for your psychology? The first approach is what people call the avalanche method. You focus on the highest interest rate debt first. You make minimum payments on everything else and throw every extra dollar at the card with the highest rate. Mathematically, this saves you the most money because you're eliminating the most expensive debt first. The second approach is the snowball method. You focus on the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. You make minimum payments on everything else and throw every extra dollar at the smallest debt. Once it's paid off, you take that payment and add it to the payment on the next smallest debt, and so on. The balances fall like dominoes. The snowball method costs you slightly more in interest over time, but it gives you psychological wins faster. You eliminate entire debts quickly, which creates momentum and motivation. For many people, this psychological benefit is worth the small additional interest cost. I don't particularly care which method you choose. What matters is that you choose one and commit to it completely. Consistency matters more than the specific strategy. Step 4, find the money. This is where it gets real. You need to throw as much money as possible at this debt, and that means you need to either spend less or earn more, preferably both. Look at your spending. I mean, really look at it. Most people have no idea where their money goes. They just spend until the account is empty and wonder why they can't get ahead. Track every dollar for a month, every coffee, every lunch, every subscription, every impulse purchase. Write it all down. Then ask yourself a simple question for each expense. Is this helping me build wealth, or is it preventing me from building wealth? That $6 coffee might seem small, but that's $180 a month, over $2,000 a year. That's $2,000 that could be eliminating debt and ending the cycle of interest payments. I'm not saying never enjoy life. I'm saying be intentional about it. Know what you're trading. Every dollar you spend on something that doesn't move you toward your goals is a dollar you're trading for continued financial stress. Cut the subscriptions you don't use, cancel the services you don't need, stop eating out so frequently, cook at home, pack your lunch, drive your car longer, delay the upgrades, live below your means, not forever, but for now, while you're fixing the problem. On the income side, look for opportunities. Can you work overtime? Can you take on a side project? Can you sell things you don't need? Can you turn a hobby into income? I'm not suggesting you work yourself to exhaustion, but a temporary period of extra effort can create permanent financial improvement. Step 5, call your credit card companies. This is something most people never do, but it can make a significant difference. Call them and ask for a lower interest rate. Explain that you're committed to paying off the debt and ask if they can reduce your rate to help you do so. You'd be surprised how often this works. Credit card companies would rather keep you as a customer at a lower rate than lose you to bankruptcy or have you default on the debt. The worst they can say is no, and if they say yes, you'll save money on every dollar of debt you're carrying. Also ask about balance transfer offers. Some cards offer 0% interest for a promotional period, often 12 to 18 months. If you can transfer your balance to one of these cards and pay it off during the promotional period, you'll save enormously on interest. But be careful, if you don't pay it off during the promotional period, the rate often jumps to something even higher than what you started with. Step 6, stay focused on the goal. This is going to take time. Depending on how much debt you have and how much you can pay, it might take months or even a few years. There will be moments when you're tempted to give up, when you're tired of sacrificing, when you see others spending freely and you wonder why you're depriving yourself. In those moments, remember what you're working toward. You're not just paying off debt, you're buying freedom, you're eliminating stress, you're creating options, you're building a foundation for real wealth. Let me tell you what life looks like on the other side of credit card debt, because this is what you're working toward. When you have no credit card debt, your entire financial picture changes. The money that was going to interest payments can now go toward building wealth. That might mean contributing to your retirement accounts, investing in index funds, or building wealth in whatever way makes sense for your situation. But more than the mathematics, it's the psychology that changes. When you're not carrying debt, you sleep better, you stress less, you don't dread checking your account balance, you don't feel that constant low-level anxiety about money. You also start making better decisions. When you're not in debt, you think long-term. You can invest in yourself, in education, in opportunities that might not pay off immediately, but will pay off eventually. You can take calculated risks because you're not already at risk from carrying debt. I've never met anyone who paid off their credit card debt and regretted it. Not once in 7 decades, but I've met countless people who regret the years they spent in debt, the opportunities they missed, the stress they carried. Why banks don't want you to know this now? Here's something interesting. Everything I've told you today is mathematically obvious. The credit card companies know these numbers better than anyone. They have entire departments of mathematicians and behavioral psychologists working to optimize their profits. So why don't they want you to know this? Because their entire business model depends on you carrying a balance. The credit card industry makes over $120 billion in interest and fees every year. That money comes from consumers who carry balances, pay late fees, and go over their limits. If everyone followed my rule, if everyone paid off their cards in full every month, the credit card industry would lose the vast majority of its profits. They'd still make money from merchant fees, but nothing like the enormous profits they make from interest. That's why their advertising focuses on rewards and benefits, not on the cost of carrying a balance. That's why they make minimum payments so low and so easy. That's why they're constantly trying to increase your credit limit. Every one of these tactics is designed to keep you in debt, to keep you paying interest, to keep you making them rich while you struggle. I want to be clear about something. I'm not anti-credit card. Credit cards are useful tools when used properly. I'm anti-debt. I'm anti-paying interest on consumer purchases. I'm anti-making banks wealthy while you stay poor. The credit card is just a tool. Used responsibly, it's convenient and even beneficial. Used irresponsibly, it's a wealth destruction machine. The difference is whether you pay it off in full every month. Building wealth the right way, once you've eliminated credit card debt and built your emergency fund, you're ready to start building real wealth. And here's what's remarkable. The same discipline that got you out of debt is the same discipline that will make you wealthy. Wealth building isn't complicated. It's not about getting rich quick or finding the perfect investment. It's about living below your means and investing the difference consistently over long periods of time. I've recommended for years that most people should invest in low-cost index funds. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You don't need to time the market. You just need to regularly invest in a broad market index fund and let compound interest do its work over decades. But here's the key. You can't do this while you're carrying high interest debt. The mathematics don't work. If you're paying 20% interest on credit card debt while your investments are making 10% returns, you're losing money, you're going backward. That's why eliminating debt must come first. It's not the exciting part of wealth building, but it's the necessary part. You can't build a house on a shaky foundation, and you can't build wealth on a foundation of debt. My challenge to you. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, today, make a decision. Decide that you're done with credit card debt. Decide that you're going to follow my rule. If you can't pay it off in full at the end of the month, you can't afford it. I know this might mean sacrifice. It might mean saying no to things you want. It might mean working harder or living differently than people around you. But I promise you, the temporary discomfort of getting out of debt is nothing compared to the permanent freedom of being debt-free. Look at your current credit card balance. That number represents a choice. You can either accept it, make minimum payments, and spend years or decades paying it off while the credit card company profits. Or you can attack it with everything you've got, eliminate it as fast as possible, and start building wealth instead of building someone else's wealth. Write down your total credit card debt, calculate how much you're paying in interest every month, really see what it's costing you, then make a plan. When will you be debt-free? What needs to change to make that happen? What are you willing to sacrifice? Most importantly, start today, not tomorrow, not next month, not after the holidays or your birthday or whatever excuse you might be tempted to use. Today. Stop using the cards today. Make a plan today. Take the first step toward freedom today. Final thoughts. You know, after all these years in business and investing, I've learned that building wealth isn't really about making brilliant investment decisions. Most people will never need to pick individual stocks or understand complex financial instruments. What they need is discipline, patience, and the wisdom to avoid expensive mistakes. Credit card debt is one of those expensive mistakes. It's a trap that's easy to fall into and hard to climb out of, but it's not impossible. Millions of people have done it. You can do it too. The credit card companies are counting on you to keep carrying that balance. They're counting on you to make minimum payments for years. They're counting on you to stay in debt. Prove them wrong. Remember, if you can't pay it off in full at the end of the month, you can't afford it. Follow that rule and you'll be wealthier than 90% of Americans. Break that rule and you'll spend your life making banks rich instead of building wealth for yourself and your family. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. And one more thing, when you do pay off that last credit card, when you finally reach zero, celebrate it. you've accomplished something significant. You've taken control of your financial life. You've stopped letting the banks profit from your labor. You've set yourself on the path to real wealth. That's a victory worth celebrating. And it's just the beginning of what's possible when you live debt-free